this, man. Right after this, you guys will hear all about 49ers day one of training camp. My man Rohan was there at camp, so you'll know all about it right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. One, two, three. Dominate.
Woo-wee! Hey, yo, Rohan, my man. Shout out to you for being there at camp, providing elite content today. Let's get right into it. Obviously, you and I are both very excited to talk camp today. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know day one of I've not talked to Rohan yet about camp, but day one of camp, their offense usually should be behind of defense. There's no pads, so you when you evaluate the running backs, when you evaluate the quarterbacks, DBs and stuff like that, they're not as physical because there's no pads. But so going into everything from here on out, you guys understand that there's no pads. Offenses should be behind on the first day or two. So Rohan, what was the first thing that stood out to you at 49ers training camp day one?
Hey, it's football's back. That's the number one thing. I mean, it's exciting. I got there a little later than I normally do. I'm working, so got there after that. Got there day one. The number one thing that stood out right from the jump: who's the first player on the field? Last year, it was one consistent player every single day. Comes out exactly at 9:40 to 9:45. It's Mr. Tongan Tiger, Talanoa Hufanga. Somebody beat him today, and it was at his exact same position, and it was a young player.
Yes,
Safety
sir.
Jair Brown was the first player out there. I got there around 9:35. Jair Brown beat me to 49ers training camp today. He was already out there on the field. Talanoa Hufanga came in at 9:40 to 9:45. Them two were working out together before the warm-ups, before the stretching all began. As you see it, a lot of players, they come out, get ready before the practice even starts. Jair Brown was out there 40 minutes before the start of practice today. Interesting scene so far. So cool to see Jair Brown out there. Cool to see some of the players out there. And that was the number one thing. That was the first thing that really stood out. And I'm excited to see what they do now.
And that's the best part, man. And when you see young guys out there that are learning from the vets, right? One thing you can learn from Talanoa Hufanga, his work ethic, man. His work ethic, it's second to none. That's absolutely the first guy out there right after Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga out there working on him right away. So looks like Hufanga's taking on a leadership role. That's phenomenal to see. Um, now, going should we get into the comments of what the players are saying first, or should we evaluate how practice actually went first? You go ahead and lead the way on that one.
We'll go ahead with practice. We'll see what they said afterwards. To start it off, everybody wants to know what were the rotations like, because obviously there's a couple of training camp battles going on. Starting off, they before every practice, the 49ers, they do a little bit of a snapping to quarterback exchange. That's where I get to know who are the centers, what's the order, and who are the quarterbacks, right? And what's kind of the order there. Lance obviously started as QB1 today, although it didn't really matter who started as QB1. It was a even 50-50 split in terms of the QB1 reps in both 11 on 11s and 7 on 7s. The throw count might not necessarily say that in 11 on 11s for reasons we will explain in a little bit, but it was an even split. As for the starting center, Jake Brendel took all of the first team reps as expected. John Feliciano was a guy who you saw snap a little bit too prior to the practice starting. Other guys that you saw taking some snaps were obviously Nick Zakel. He was a guy who was in there. Keith Ishmael, an undrafted free agent, was in there as well. So you have a couple of names, that were in there taking a couple of snaps. And the final guy that I saw taking snaps today was undrafted free agent Corey Luciano. So rotating in between a few of the teams. It did seem, though, however, that John Feliciano played at guard for a portion of today's practice, a good portion of today's practice in the 11 on 11s and 7 on 7s. Keith Ishmael was the second team center during that stretch. So seems like they're, rotating some of these guys out. Defensively, no Nick Bosa, but Arik Armstead and Javon Hargrave were both there for the individual drill portion. You saw both of them in there.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive ends were Drake Jackson and Cleveland Farrell today. Cleveland Farrell wearing number 94, representing Charles Omenihu. Second teamers, Austin Bryant took over. Not Kalia Davis. Kevin Givens and Javon Kinlaw were the defensive tackles. And then opposite of Austin Bryant, I believe, was Kerry Hyder. He played defensive end today. So those were your first and second team. Kalia Davis was on third team alongside Spencer Wagee. Robert Beal was around there as well. A guy who I did not see today, T.Y. McGill. I was looking forward to seeing him. Did not see him there. Maybe I missed him, but did not see T.Y. McGill out there at practice. But seems like a regular rotation. Kinlaw and Givens were the starters in team drills, though. No Arik Armstead, no Javon Hargrave. Very light day for the 49ers with the rotations because a lot of players did not play in full. George Kittle was briefly there for individual drills, did not practice at all in team drills. Ross Dwelly and Charlie Warner took all of the first team snaps. Other notes, Arik Armstead, like I said, not there. Javon Hargrave, not there. Trent Williams was in practice, played in some individual drills, not at all in the team drills. Jalen Moore was the first team left tackle, and he rotated in with Leroy Watson as the left tackles today without Trent Williams. So that's kind of the main news there. What do you got for me?
So a few questions for you because I know you're there. How did Kalia Davis look, and how did Colton McKivitz look? From before you even say anything, I did hear that the Niners Colton McKivitz struggled a bit, but that's I don't know. It's no pads. It's hard to evaluate offensive lineman and defensive lineman with no pads. So I'm very curious. How did those two look in your eyes with no pads on today?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, no pads. I don't normally take too much into offensive line with no pads. The way I looked at it, though, Steve Wilks made it difficult, especially in that last 11 on 11 session. A lot of running today. I don't really take into account the run game. When the run game is going on without pads, I only look at the running back and the fluidity of how they're running. I don't look at the different things between the lines, just because you don't really know without how truly physical it gets until pads come on and how they play with that level of physicality. But I will say this, Steve Wilks made it a little difficult for the 49ers offensive line. In that 11 on 11 stretch, the second 11 on 11 stretch, you saw him dial up a couple of blitzes. Pressure got there maybe 4 or 5 times in a set of maybe 6-7 plays between Lance and Darnold as quarterback. Lance got sacked. At least he got sacked or pressured on 3 consecutive plays. Darnold got sacked. That took away one of his pass attempts. So there was good pressure there, but I don't know if you can necessarily place it on a specific player or if it's getting acclimated with the remainder of the offensive line because of the blitzing coming through, because of the heavier pressure coming through. And I'm starting to think that's going to be a look you see a little more. There's a lot of trust in this defense in players like Fred Warner to carry ground with receivers. Fred Warner had an amazing PBU today, ran stride to stride with Deebo Samuel, and broke up a pass on the sideline. A good play from Warner. It seems like a lot more of an onus placed on some of those key players with allowing pressure to be there.
Absolutely. Let's talk about. I know the running back rotation was a little bit different than it has been in the past. Jordan Mason got a few reps early, fumbled. Fred Warner punched. No, Demetrius Flanagan Foles punched the ball out. I believe. So that happened. So linebackers are phenomenal. 49ers have phenomenal linebackers, but then we saw Ty Davis Price emerge today. Probably one of his better practices he's had since he's been drafted by the 49ers.
The best. This was his best practice I have seen.
Talk to
This
me
was
about
by
what you
far.
saw. Was it being in better shape, NFL shape, the burst that he's always had that we saw at LSU? Is that finally on display? What are we seeing from Ty Davis Price? Because not only did he have a nice day running the ball, it sounded like he had a phenomenal reception that became a big game. Talk to us a little bit about that, Rohan.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Davis Price was my standout of the day. I made that very clear here on Twitter. He's the one guy who was not a superstar who I thought stood out today. And the reason is again, without pads, no tackling. So it's tough to see. Okay, is the ball secure? Things like that and things like that. But the running back competition was interesting because Christian McCaffrey did not participate in team drills. So it was an even split between Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell for the first team reps. Mason did have a fumble. It seemed like Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles was the one that forced it. Didn't like there was a bit of a scrum. Didn't see the full details of that, but he did have a fumble there. Ty Davis Price, on the other hand, though, he looks fluid in his movement. Last year, the biggest issue was him second guessing himself, bouncing to the outside, trying to trust his speed. He's not doing that right now. He looked fluid, was moving in and out, and his change of direction is very fluid. That matches his burst. Not going to
So,
be an otherworldly fast running back or anything like that, but he's got good burst. That was shown last year, emphasized again today, and good change of direction. He's hitting the hole hard. And something, oh, okay, pause there. But something you didn't see as much last year because he's bouncing it out to the outside, and that just allows defenses to crash on him at the line of scrimmage. He goes straight through. He's running downhill. And I think that that's an important necessity in this offense.
so the running back situation looked nice. Everyone wants to know, how do the quarterbacks look? That's everyone's here for the juicy topic. How did Trey Lance, Sam Darnold fare today? Who went first? Um, Now, when you're watching this, there's no legit pass rush going on because obviously
Right.
passes aren't on. But hey, before you explain things, I always love to hear how you track your stats because I know you and I track a little bit differently than other people that are in the media in the sense of if there's a sack, sometimes we don't count. If it's a clear sack, we don't count it as a rep to throw because he's already sacked. Now, do you count reps when quarterbacks are sacked and they still throw the ball? Do you count it if the receiver goes out of bounds, doesn't get his feet in? Explain to us how you 100% um, dictate when you're watching the quarterback situation on what you're looking at, what you're going through, because there's so many different stats you see on Twitter, right? I've seen 6 of 9, I've seen 4 of 5, I've seen 5 of 6 for Trey Lance. So there's a bunch of different stats being thrown out. So and it's because each of these people that are watching they track differently. So go
Mhm.
ahead and explain to us before we get into the quarterback situation, so we all have an understanding of what you're tracking, so we could understand completely.
Yeah, so for context, I had Trey Lance charted as 4 of 6 today. For me, I don't count 7 on 7 reps. I count only 11 on 11 reps in the way that I track. If there's a pass interference called or if there's a sack called, I usually elect not to count it unless there's specific context with that throw where it seems like he could have avoided it or something like that. And so I charted Trey Lance at 4 of 6. There were a few plays where you might have said, okay, he would have gotten sacked there, you don't touch it. But because I thought that all of the throws were made right before the pressure got there, I counted all 6 of his throws in 11 on 11s today. I know some people have done 5 of 6. The one disparity, which I'll get to when I break down every one of his throws, was a nice drop in the bucket on the sideline to Danny Gray, where it looked like Danny Gray didn't get both feet in. The defense signaled as if Danny Gray didn't get both feet in on the sideline, but if he did, it was a nice throw and a nice catch to keep both feet inbounds on the sideline, and that would have improved him to 5 of 6. So
So can I
that's the
throw
way
my
I look
red
at it.
challenge? Can I throw my red challenge flag out so we can go to review and booth review it? Is that what you're trying to
Because
tell me?
yeah, I mean, you kind of could, but the way I look at it, I chart everything as normal, and then I involve the context. If there are throwaways, I'll involve that. If there are sacks, I'll involve that. If there are drops, I'll involve that. Interceptions, touchdowns, obviously, when red zone play and turnovers come into play. But that's the way I chart it. Looking at it, if I personally believe it was a pass interference, would not probably not chart that play, but would mention that it was a pass interference when breaking it down. And I think this is a good segue. Let's get into Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, that quarterback competition, and the way that those throws were today. Starting off with Trey Lance, had 6 throws, completed 4 of them in my book, but it was not a big throwing day at all for either quarterback. What do I mean by that? It was a lot of implementation of the run. And early on, you were a little frustrated because it was a lot more checkdowns. It was a lot more quick outs, a lot more checkdowns rather than throwing the ball downfield. Early on, in the 11 on 11s and the early 7 on 7s, I thought that Lance could have aired the ball out a little more than he did rather than being conservative at some points. You got to give what the defense gets. You got to take what the defense gives you. But I thought there was a little bit of hesitation early on from Trey Lance, and that might have shifted not necessarily his completion percentage, but the way that I viewed his initial kind of start. But Lance started off the day. His first throw was one of the best of the day. It was a nice drop in on a with pressure coming into his left side, a nice drop to the left sideline on a wheel route for Ty Davis Price, who ran the route well, caught the ball in stride, and got a solid gain out of it. It was a good play, probably around a 12 to 15-yard pass, and then a little bit of a run after. A good play with from Trey Lance there to get the ball to Ty Davis Price. That was the lone throw he had in the first 11 on 11 session. A lot more runs. Sam Darnold then followed up. So Lance was the first quarterback on the field, by the way. Darnold followed up. He was with the twos. Didn't get a pass attempt in the first session. A lot of throws, and then his only lone pass attempt was a play action rollout or play action rollout to the
Boop.
left side. Yeah,
Was
play
it a
action
play
boot to the
boop?
left side. And Darnold couldn't find anybody and ran out of bounds, got 0 yards on the play. Brandon Allen, he had one throw, incompletion. Good for him. But
So
yeah,
there is no pads. I know, I just see the comment in the chat. There are no pads yet, so everything he's talking about is padless right now.
correct, exactly. That was the first 11 on 11 session was very quick. It then turned to 7 on 7s, which you'll see I don't chart. But Darnold got the first reps in the 7 on 7s. He went 3 for 4 in the period. First throw, it was a slant on a well-covered ball to Deebo Samuel. Charvarius Ward covered it well, and the ball was behind him. Incompletion by Sam Darnold. The next throw was a check down to Ross Dwelly. Oren Burks was there immediately, just a regular check down. Darnold followed that up with an out route to Deebo Samuel. Quick throw, good. Gave what the defense or took what the defense gave him because Deommodore Lenoir was playing off coverage there. And then the final play was just a throw quickly to the flat to Jordan Mason. And so he ended up 3 for 4 in that first stage. Lance then came in with the second team. First ball, check down to Ross Dwelly. This is the ball where I felt he could have let it rip to the intermediate portion of the field. Chose to take the check down to Ross Dwelly. Then hit Braden Willis for a quick check down, off coverage. Threw that ball pretty quickly. Then his next incompletion was to Cameron Latu. Seemed like this one was a drop from my angle. Seemed like this one was a drop. Close coverage, though, by Taylor Hawkins, and it was on an out route. Lance put it on him, but you could argue maybe put it out a little more out to the outside, but it seemed like this ball was catchable. If not, then you could consider it a PBU. Then Lance threw an incompletion, probably his worst throw of the day, threw an incompletion to the middle of the field, tried to fit it in, essentially just tried to fit it in into a tight window. Receiver may have gotten pushed, but still the ball was off target, and so there was no PI called.
And who is he attempting this throw to?
I did not see, but I believe it was one of the backup wide receivers, though.
Okay, so
It
it
might have been
wasn't like
Willie
it was.
Snead. No,
Okay,
no,
so
it
it
wasn't
might.
Deebo
Okay,
Samuel. It wasn't any of the starters. It was a backup wide receiver. Couldn't see the jersey, but yeah, no pass interference called, but the ball was off target there. So Lance ended up 2 for 4 in this portion of the 7 on 7s, one drop. Then
okay.
came came pure 11 on 11s to the end, and this is where Lance started to heat up. His first ball was an incompletion. This one, he tried to fit the ball in, tried to throw it into a bucket on the sideline. Would have been probably around a 20-yard throw to Deebo Samuel, but Fred Warner, he carried Deebo Samuel stride for stride and was able to make a PBU. Tight window there, just a really good play by Fred Warner. You could have argued Lance throw that ball maybe a second sooner, but really just a tight window throw and a incompletion break up there by Fred Warner.
I mean,
And Fred Warner got
best
hyped.
linebacker in the game. You better,
Fred Warner got hyped.
he went like this. Probably flexed on him, looked at the crowd because he loves to get the crowd into it during training camp. Phenomenal player, man. Can't believe he ran stride for stride with an all-pro receiver. That's insane, dude.
Yeah. And guys, real quick before I continue, all your questions, make sure you drop them in the chat because as I did last year, what I'll do is I'll talk through the breakdown, then I'll get to every single question. We'll make sure we get through it before we get on out of here. But that was Lance's first throw of the second and 11 on 11 session. Followed that with a quick curl route to Jawan Jennings. Drake Jackson got in there, and it wasn't a sack, but he got a pressure there. That was something I noticed. But a quick curl to Juwan Jennings. Then came maybe the play of the day, not from Lance, but from Brandon Ayuk. Lance high pointed a ball maybe 10 yards to the sideline of Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk jumped the highest I've ever seen him jump. He made an insane high point catch over Deommodore Lenoir, and somehow kept both feet in bounds. When you guys see this play on clip, you're going to be like, how the hell did he jump that high? Insane catch from Brandon Ayuk, good concentration, and he talked a little trash to Deommodore Lenoir after catching the ball over him. A good ball from Lance, only where Ayuk could have gotten it, but just a freaking insane catch from Brandon Ayuk, man. But that ended up being Lance's first portion of that of this 11 on 11 session. He goes 2 for 3. Sam Darnold comes in, his first throw attempt, he gets sacked. So that play didn't count. But then after that, he hit Brandon Ayuk on an intermediate kind of curl comeback route. Ayuk was wide open, had 2 catches on the day, the high point, and then this one. Good start to camp for Brandon Ayuk. Then that was Darnold's kind of lone throw during this period of time. So then it shifts back to Lance. Lance is now with the second team. First ball was to Danny Gray. This is the one where I didn't know if it was an incompletion or a completion. Probably Lance's best ball of the day. A nice in the bucket throw to the sideline for Danny Gray over a defender. A good ball from Lance, right on target, right on the sideline. Did not know if Danny Gray got both feet, and it appeared on the field that he did not. The defenders were looking, they were showing the incomplete sign. They were looking as if he did not get in bounds, but many ruled it a catch. So you could take that as you wish. A good play and a solid catch from Danny Gray. Just didn't see if he got 2 feet in. Then came Darnold back. He threw an incompletion to Danny Gray. This one was a near touchdown, but also a near interception. It's one of those funny plays. Danny Gray was the intended receiver, got a step on Ambry Thomas, probably had him by a step and a half. Darnold aired the ball out, but he threw the ball a little inside. Still, don't hate the placement. Maybe you throw it outside, it's a touchdown. Maybe you throw it straight, it's a touchdown. But he threw it a little inside. Just Talanoa Hufanga comes out of nowhere. He goes cross field and makes an amazing play on the ball, nearly intercepts the ball. And so great coverage play there from Talanoa Hufanga. Sensed it right before Donald threw it and ran, that burst got him there. He was able to get to the ball and nearly get an interception. So a huge play there from Talanoa Hufanga, an incompletion from Sam Darnold. Then Trey Lance finished it out with being quarterback 2. The first play that he was quarterback, pressure was there. He flushed out and ran across the sideline. Probably gets about 10 yards, 12 yards there. A little hard to see. Does he get sacked there? But it seemed like he evaded the pocket just in time, and he was able to outrun the defense up the right sideline for about 10 to 12 yards. The lone scramble of the day from Trey Lance. The next play.
So you had it on that one. I'm gonna
Go
question
ahead.
you on that one. So that one you had it 10 to 12 because I did see other people say 30 plus yards. I saw a few people say that. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't say. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Was it more 10 30 yards because you ran across the field, or was it a 10
No,
15 yard gain?
it was I wrote it down as 10 to 15 yards up the right sideline. He would have gotten caught, in my opinion, after that 10 to 15 yard range. I think he got the first down, and it seemed like he slowed down after he got the first down. Might have gone out of bounds too, but I thought he would have gotten caught after that 10 yard-ish range. Didn't think it was a 30 yarder. Some people might have thought that because the defense probably just let up, or Lance probably just kept running, type of thing. But
For sure.
that's the way I looked at it. I didn't think it was a sack. I thought he got out. Me and Brad Graham, the SF Niners, we both thought he got out just in time. But then the final throw of the day from Trey Lance, another strong one. Was able to sidestep in the pocket, evade a rusher coming through, and then hit Cameron Latu on an out route. Latu made a strong catch here. Had a defender draped all over him, but made a strong catch. Good placement on the ball. It was about chest plate to eye level, higher up because the defender was charging in at a lower range. Latu made a strong catch and was essentially he essentially avoided a tackle pretty much.
So for that throw in particular, I did hear that was a throw of the day for Lance, even though he did have the deep shot to Danny Gray. And what I was told was the reason why it was a throw of the day from the guy that I was talking to was he said Lance got through every read on this play,
Yes.
comes back, hits Latu, and he said from where he was standing, it was a tight window. So he was like, that's a tight enough window to mark as a tight window. He goes, but he went through all of his progressions, came back, like you said, eluded a rusher, and delivered a nice ball. Now, Cameron Latu did muscle up and big body people, from what I also heard. So it's great to hear that that the placement, the touch that he's having, because honestly, the year one and year two, all he had was that nine ball. It's full speed coming at you 100 miles per hour. Sounds like he's delivering some balls with touch that aren't being dropped. So that's good to hear, man.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's important, right, to note where these balls are being placed because when you see defenses, because remember, Lance sometimes like this these last two plays, he's going against the second team defense. He's QB2 for these last two plays. So when you get to a first team defense, you understand that it's going to be tighter coverage. You understand ball placement is going to be important. So it's good to see that being practiced, and it's good to see that being hit as well during this stage.
Absolutely. Now there are a couple questions. I think you're done with the quarterback breakdown, right? The play
Yep.
breakdown. So
That
we'll
was
get to
exactly all of Lance's, all of Darnold's charted throws. If you guys want to hear Brandon Allen, probably put it in an article at the end of the article or something
0
like
for
that.
3 or
But
something like that. Not much to talk about there. And
yeah,
we're talking about the fourth quarterback on the roster. It's not. Let's bear some time, you
yeah.
know. So there are a couple questions. I know was Elijah Mitchell out there today? I don't think he was, but I don't think Christian McCaffrey was, right?
Correct. Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason split first team running back reps in team drills. Christian McCaffrey was out there, only played in individual drills, did not play in team drills. And by team drills, guys, any of these 11 on 11, 7 on 7 sessions, that's all considered a part of team drills.
Um, so who would you say won the session of the day? Was it offense or defense, or the split?
Tough one. Tough one. Just given that there weren't too many plays, I would say defense, just because they made the more splash plays. I talked about the Warner play. I talked about the huge Huff play. I would say defense, but again, this was a huge run heavy day on a day without pads. Running the ball without pads, it's just, you're trying to essentially just get the concepts down. Tough to say. It's fairly, today was a fairly even day, would give the edge, though, to the defense.
Okay. There was no there on this one. I can answer this one. There was no interceptions on the day.
Oh, actually, there was. Kyle threw one. Kyle
Oh,
threw one.
Kyle
Um,
throws like 10 a practice though, man.
Kyle was, I liked it. He was testing the defense today. Kyle, he tried a couple of tight window ones, a couple of cornerbacks dropped the ball. Kyle throws when the cornerbacks or when the defense is
In
going through
shell.
their walkthroughs.
Yeah,
Yeah, in
when
shell.
they're in their shell. So pretty much essentially what shell is the how the defensive line they're walking through their motions. They're not really doing anything. Kyle has terrible quarterback mechanics. I last year I broke it down. He's terrible as a quarterback. Rohan 49ers throwback asks. He will. He said Rohan gives Trey Lance a B minus. Would you give him a B minus? What would your grades be for both quarterbacks if you had to give a grade on each quarterback?
I'd actually probably bump it up, maybe a B. B minus is fair. B is probably what I'm going to end up giving him today. I thought his day was solid. Did not dislike his incompletions. The reason he doesn't get an A, I thought he could have started a little hotter. Especially in the 7-on-7 range. Thought he could have been a little more aggressive. But again, you take what the defense gives you. Not a bad day at all for Trey Lance. It's obviously not an amazing day. It's just because of the way that the game plan was oriented. A lot more shorter throws. I'm not going to reward shorter throws and being a high grade in comparison to when you throw, deep and intermediate throws and get a solid completion percentage there. I'd say a B day for Trey Lance. Did not hate any of the incompletions. He had one kind of missed throw where he was off target. So out of I think it was 13 total throws, only one was off target. So I did not dislike the day at all from Trey Lance. As for Sam Darnold, I would probably give him a B minus to a C plus, just because he just didn't get as much opportunity. Some of the
Was
balls,
he
the deep
was he
ball.
undecisive?
I wouldn't say indecisive. He was another guy who got the check down, so I'll probably end up giving him a B minus. I didn't hate any of his throws either. Like I said, the deep ball was one where you could have maybe argued for better placement on the outside so that Hufanga can't get there, because Danny Gray was open on the play. There are a couple of knickknacks that you can argue here. I'd probably say a B minus just because of the volume of the throws and the location of the throws, that kind of thing.
Um, this question, this statement from 49ers George 365. My guess is he might have been in attendance. Shout out to 49ers George for being there if he was. The tightest window and best time throw by Lance was to Jawan Jennings on a 10-yard out on the left sideline, highly contested. This might have been on 7-on-7s. I don't think this was during team drills, so it might have been on 7-on-7s. So if you go through your 7-on-7 notes, it might be there. That's interesting because
This was actually, I think this was during 11s.
it was
But
during 11s.
Yeah, this was when Lance took over during 11s in the first. Sorry, it was in his first session. It was the throw after the PBU to Warner. Um, it was a solid throw. I wouldn't say that it was his best throw. I thought that there were a couple of others that were there because while it was somewhat highly contested, it was still a good enough. Like in the NFL, I wouldn't consider that to be as tight of a window as it was. I thought that ball should have been caught and should have been placed where it was. So it was a nice ball, solid ball.
So let's go towards the comments because obviously, sounded like the defense and offense were solid today. Not much to critique or much to say about negativity, but it kind of sounded like if you look at obviously it sucked that the 49ers didn't go live today during their press conferences, um, but Debo had a comment to say about Trey Lance, and so did George Kittle. Debo went on record to say. Let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. But he essentially said that um, he looks much better, much more. Why can I not find the comment? Sorry
You're
about that.
saying of Debo Samuel?
Yeah, Debo said on Trey Lance. He said, I'll get the exact quote. So pretty much what I'm gonna read off what Grant put because I can't find the exact quote that I saw earlier. But Grant Kahn, he said Debo Samuel just asked about Brock Purdy. Debo answered by saying the quarterback competition will be intense and that Trey Lance has improved a lot. Mentioned he has much more touch than before. That's interesting for an interesting comment, especially if he was asked about Brock Purdy and he alluded to Trey Lance. To me, that's interesting. I also did see George Kittle mention Trey Lance. So, what are your thoughts on um, the Debo Samuel comment, and then I'll pull up the George Kittle comment as well.
Yeah, I mean, Debo Samuel, a guy who I would say actually didn't look too bad in terms of his fitness and things like that. Looked pretty solid. I mean, looked active today. Obviously, didn't necessarily wasn't necessarily involved as much in a low passing day, but looked pretty active today, and so that's a good thing. But I mean, him on Trey Lance, it's true. He's looking improved, and you could see it. I mean, I posted a little clip of his mechanics do seem improved. The release seems, or at least the motion seems a little quicker, which is important. And to me, I've said it this past week after we've seen some clips of Lance Arise. It's consistency for me. How can he put it all together? Can he put the mechanics together when going through and simulating through a practice where he's not just throwing against air? And can he be consistent? The first part of the question, somewhat solved. The second part of the question, consistency, that's the thing that we've got to see over the next few days.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, last year, my biggest issue with Lance, like you could, I criticized the accuracy. That was something that I think was an issue. But I honestly thought his biggest issue was consistency. He just wasn't able to compile consistent days. He had a really good day some days where you were like, wow, this guy looks like a quarterback of the future. And then he had days right after that where it's like, yeah, this guy definitely looks raw. It's understandable why the 49ers are doing what they're doing. And so that's where I'm looking. Can that gap be bridged? Can there be a little more of a consistent practice from Trey Lance? And I think people also don't necessarily understand what kind of player he is right now. Obviously, he's not open to the naked eye. I talked with Ted H, who has his own channel afterwards, and he said that he thought Lance underwhelmed him based on his expectations of Lance. I don't think
But
Lance
I think,
underwhelmed today. It's just that's the type of player Lance is, and I think he had a good game, a good day. Obviously, the game plan might make it seem underwhelming because he's checking down the ball a good amount today and things like that. I didn't think he had a bad day. I thought he, a B level type of day, and so to me, that's the way that I'm thinking about it. Lance right now, solid day one, but you've got to be able to build on it. That's the only way that there's going to be any disparity with the quarterbacks.
but I think going into training camp day one with high expectations for an offensive side of the ball is the wrong way to go about it, because you really don't want to go into training camp day one with expectations of anyone being super outrageously good, or going like that, because really all you're doing is setting up yourself for uh, disappointment, because one is day one of install. Now, when you're doing day one of install, you're going to see a lot more of the basics, the very bland, vanilla offense. But I thought the George Kittle comment was very interesting. So he was asked on what he noticed most about Trey Lance's improvement, and George Kittle said he has a confidence about him. He's not second guessing himself.
Mhm.
And I've always said it's the confidence level that the veterans appreciate of the other court. Like, for example, Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, they had a confidence about them. If Trey Lance has that confidence about him, and to go along with the play, that's going to be phenomenal to see. And I'm just excited to see what the 49ers do, how the guys react and reality behind him. Shout out to Last Second Sports, my guy Jesse Naylor. Make
And
sure you guys
before we
go.
get to this fool's comment, I just really quick wanted to say, no, I love you, Jesse, but talking about the confidence, I want to clear up something I said earlier and just clarify what I mean. I said how sometimes I felt Lance was hesitant, not hesitant, but I felt that Lance could have let it rip. The issue for me today was not Lance in terms of hesitancy. It was more so him taking a shorter throw instead of a more intermediate throw on one or two occasions, and that's something where I feel like, yeah, you can let it rip. Am I
But
going to
then,
blame you for taking what the defense gives you or taking the easier throw? No, it's just one of those one or two throws where I had a preference where he could have ended up throwing the ball. But I don't you don't complain about that when you're making the throw that the defense gives you.
but the thing is though, is if he does make that, he does let it rip, right? And the passes drop, passes, whatever, incompleted. You got people being so, oh, he missed that throw because he even throw it deep, but no yards. EPA isn't there in training camp, so you get stuff like that. And to be honest, um, him working on the little things, the little improvements, I think is the best thing, the best route for him to go. Jesse goes on to say it's funny because he can't quotations pretty much regarding on what people usually say is he can't do the basics. So when he does the basics, he's ripped on not making big plays. Now it sounded like he did have big plays and splashed in there with the basic stuff. He did have a big gain to Davis Price. He had a big throw to Danny Gray. Nice ball to Brandon Ayuk. So it sounds like
Yeah,
it was mixed in, but he could have. What you were seeing is it could have been an A+ day if he took
yeah,
those intermediate to deep routes instead of the check down and what people have been wanting to see him do. But normally he would take that intermediate route last year instead of checking it down and taking what the defense gives them, but it would lead to an incompletion. So I think what he's doing is
exactly.
build the confidence, man. Build the confidence going into day two. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not there. I can't judge like you are, so I can't see if, oh man, that guy was wide open. He should have hit that. Um,
And I
but
don't want him to make it seem like I'm nitpicking either. There are 13 throws in total that Trey Lance made in this. I am talking specifically right about one or two of 13 throws. In general, it's just one or two throws. But when I view the practice, I just got to call everything as I see it. And that's the one thing where I'm saying Lance had a B day instead of what you might have expected an A day, given what you've heard. That's how it is. But this is true. This comment is very true, right? Where you can't do the basics. You need to be able to do everything. And last year, Lance, there were times where he didn't do the basics properly, and that's something that's clearly on his mind and clearly on the team's mind in terms of their install. Trying to get those basics down. That's where you see a lot of these check down throws, a lot of these, a lot of these throws to the flat, a lot of these different shorter throws, quick out routes, because in 2, 3 days, what is it going to be? a whole lot of intermediate, a lot of scrimmage, a whole lot of intermediate and things like that.
I don't know.
And I
It sounds
know
like y'all got beef, man. It sounds like you and Jesse got
this
beef. I
comment
know
wasn't towards me, but my
it was
comment was
towards you.
towards him.
Nah, it was towards you. I don't, bro. Don't let Jesse get away with that one. Don't let that old man get away with that one. All right.
Ah, that's
Shout out
funny.
to Jesse. Great guy. Um, Great show that he has. Make sure you guys check him out. Phenomenal work that he does. He'll be at training camp. The next, I believe, starting on Friday. I believe I could be wrong. But he's supposed to be there, or I think it might be Sunday because he says he's gonna fight you on Sunday. So watch out because y'all about to fade up. I don't know. I might got. I don't know. I'm not putting any bets on that one, but I think the odds are in favor of Rohan right now. So so watch
That
out.
guy tries to box me. I'm calling security, bro. I can't get
Um,
within 5 feet of him.
uh, so it's interesting, man, because it sounds like today's practice was a fun day. Sounds like everyone is. You're not gonna expect extreme, um, immediate players to come out gun blazing swinging, right? Like
Yeah,
that's not how training camp works. Training camp is a build up towards the season. It's today's day one. You cannot go 100 miles per hour on day one. That's not how it works in the NFL. You do that, you end up getting hurt.
exactly.
Sounds like Kyle is taking care of his team's bodies by having a light practice today. Tomorrow you'll probably see a little bit more, and then on Friday it'll be the most complete practice of the 3 day period. And then they'll have the day off on Saturday. Sunday will be the same thing. And it builds up towards the end of the third day, we usually is the most competitive practice of the evening. Shout out to Mariah for, or no, shout out to, yep, I clicked on the wrong one. Shout out to Mariah telling Jesse, giving a shout out to Jesse. Hope all is well. Shout out to Throwback. I will be on at 6 p.m. I'll be on with John Chapman of the 49ers Gold Rush podcast. So if you guys want to tune in, make sure you guys subscribe to Clutch Gene Sports. And we'll go ahead and go live at 6 p.m. to hear another perspective from someone else that is live on the ground in training camp. Make sure you guys hit that like. Make sure you guys subscribe to both channels. There's going to be a lot of content coming out over the next few days. Hopefully, I could get Jesse Naylor of Last Second Sports on the show so you guys can hear from him when he is touchdown in Santa Clara. Rohan, any other good comments or any other good details you could leave us as we get ready to depart from today's show?
Now, going through my notes, we pretty much covered a good amount. I'm excited to see tomorrow because that is the first day that we will see Brock Purdy in uniform. Brock Purdy was out there today, was out there before practice. I did not see him. Brad saw him, was out there before practice, and then was also here out there today in street clothes, stretching, warming up, that type of thing. But I didn't see him throw a football. Excited to see Brock Purdy play tomorrow because he's expected to get the first team reps. We'll see how the 49ers do the second and third team division and whether Brock Purdy, what that pitch count kind of looks like. But that's going to be the huge storyline tomorrow. One other thing, cool to see Samuel Womack get a number change. He's at 0. We all saw 26. I was like, shit, I mean, where's Isaiah Oliver? And then I realized Oliver's 26, Womack 0. And that's where I'm going to end today's show, talking about the cornerbacks real quick, because that's a position group that I saw a little bit of, ins and outs as well. Or I'll talk about the secondary in general, because something I saw that was interesting, Sean Gibson, seems like he was limited in a way during the not injury related, just probably rest, was limited in a way during some of the team drills. And so George Odom was actually the one who played a solid, like he probably played half of the first team
Oh,
safety
wow.
reps today. And then he and Jair Brown were the second team safeties as well when them two were on the field. Taylor Hawkins ended up being the third on the third team. So that's the way they're looking at it. A couple of people have questions on the nickel alignment and different things like that. Quantrez Knight right now is the backup nickel to Isaiah Oliver. He plays with the second and third team because the 49ers are experimenting with Samuel Womack on the outside. He was the outside cornerback with Ambry Thomas today, and Deshaun Jameson saw some second team reps as well, mixed in second team and third team. A lot of mixing with the second and third team. But Samuel Womack was an outside corner today. Deshaun Jameson was in that group alongside Ambry Thomas as well. We'll see if they do a little bit of mixing, see Womack on the inside as well. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but that's something I wanted to point out. George Odom saw some first team reps today. Don't think George Odom's in any way going to take the starting job, but might be the depth chart right now. You know, the 49ers are making Jair Brown work for it, but that's just because Gibson was limited with rest. So that's the way it was. Hufanga was in there. Odom was in there at some point. And then as for the cornerbacks, you saw Quantrez Knight be the nickel, and you saw behind Isaiah Oliver, you saw the regular starters, Lenore, Treverius Ward, and then Isaiah Oliver. And then in the backups, it was a mix of Ambry Thomas and Deshaun Jameson. Then on the other side, it was Womack and then Quantrez Knight.
Absolutely. Great episode today, Rohan. I believe 49ers Throwback is plugging our boy Jesse. So I'll go ahead and read this comment. I believe Jesse is on Last Second Sports starts at 6:30. Make sure you guys check him out as well. Shout out to you guys, man. Faithful kept it live in the chat today. Had a lot of you guys tuned in. Make sure you guys subscribe to both channels. Rohan, I appreciate you, man, for jumping on, giving great analysts of what you saw today at 49ers training camp. Thank you. Any last comments before we head out, my brother?
No, this is a fun show, guys. This is exactly what you guys are going to get. And it's going to be a lot more detailed when a lot more starts happening in practice over the next 8 days of training camp. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. Dropping your comments. Be sure to tune in, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when we're going live, because it might change. I might not always get to do it right after practice, but if I can, I'm going to try and get it done right after practice, tell you guys everything I saw so that you guys are well informed, stick with the team. Marco, as always, appreciate you for being the co-host today. And guys, we'll see you guys probably tomorrow very soon.
Thank you.